Well, let's get a sense of the impact of the decision on ground. Jared Osoro, the Director of Research at the Kenyan Bankers Association, now joins us in the studio. Welcome to the studio, sir.
Thank you very much.
Now, what is your take on the court's decision? It says the IEBC violated the law. How is this going to impact the country and certainly the rerun that we're expecting to come soon?
I think it's a very interesting question because the court didn't make a decision today. The court was delivering a detailed ruling today. The decision was made on the 1st of September. And the immediate reaction, as you can imagine, is the market moved. And market tend to move when there is a sense of news that build a sense of uncertainty. Now, what one could expect as the implication of the decision is that it enhances a sense of uncertainty in the market, and therefore investors tend to take a certain view. If you're a short-term investor, then you'll have to wait and see how things settle down. But there are those who are looking at coming into the market for the medium to long haul. And those have been looking at the market even before the decision was made, just before the general elections were held. And those had already factored in the uncertainties around the elections before they made their decision to either move in or wait and see. But the immediate reaction to the decision was basically seen in the key financial markets, particularly the stock exchange and the foreign exchange market, where they moved very fast. That movement should not necessarily be seen as a correct read of the market, because markets can overreact, either on the positive side or on the negative side. And the sense of overreaction can be seen on how soon they correct. And the movement that we saw immediately after the decision was made on the 1st of September was a quick movement in the currency. But now we have a sense of stability, and the market is regaining slowly. Yeah.
Now, they did, like you said, today was not the decision, it was the explanation for that decision. Let's talk about the risks this is going to pose to Kenya's economy going forward. As we know, it's already clouding the economic outlook going forward. We're expecting a good performance in the last quarter of the year. Could there be risk to that performance going forward?
Obviously, there will be implications insofar as the broader economic performance is concerned. The first quarter of this year was not very good. It has actually not been it was the slowest we've seen over the last 3 or so years. Now, bring in the uncertainty caused by the general elections, you'll see the forecast for the economy's performance this year being revised downward substantially. And that has its own implications, because if there were investors who are coming in on the basis of a sustained real GDP growth to be on the positive side, we'll have to review their positions going forward. So essentially, we are going to see this having implications insofar as the broader economic performance is concerned. And that has manifestations on how probably even the domestic policy dynamics play out, because things like revenue forecasting that have been built into the budget were based on a certain rate of growth. So if you have to start revising that downwards, then you probably have to see the whole thing cascading into a number of readjustments. And therefore, the implications are not just revising downwards the economic forecasts, but even the policy has to be recalibrated in view of the likelihood of this affecting the way the economy is going to perform going forward. Yes.
But let's talk about the realities in terms of the level of that risk. I mean, we saw supporters protesting at the Supreme Court today. What are the chances we'll see that violence intensifying going forward, and certainly making the situation even more worse and enhancing that risk?
My own thought on that is that, when the elections were announced, the results were announced, we saw a sense of demonstrations. When the court made its ruling, it was quiet, but we saw some demonstrations yesterday. And we also saw demonstrations a bit of today. So I think from an investor standpoint, it's whether one chooses to read the actual signal or the noise. And I think the signal is that, perhaps this decision, even though it means that we are going to go back into re-election, is probably reinforcing the fact that we have institutions that work. And for institutions to work, there has to be some cost to it. So those who have the view that, going into a general election will mean that we are going to spend more than we had budgeted, probably ignore the fact that, there's a reason why we have those institutions. And there's a reason why, for instance, when there was a dispute at the announcement of the elections, there was almost consensus that those who have a dispute should go to the Supreme Court. So essentially, what we are saying here is that the Supreme Court has actually enforced the strength of institutions, and I think it should be seen in the positive light. That is not to mean that markets will not react and investors will not react, because there are some who have not seen it like that.
before.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for your insights. Of course, that was Jared Osoro. He's with the Kenyan Bankers Association.